Good morning. I'd like to call the Committee on Rules to order. Please call the roll.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are going to get started. I will begin with the docket in terms of legislative studies and actions on those legislative studies. I will then move into executive studies, then judicial studies, and then all other miscellaneous items, and then commending items, and then items that will be referred to this committee. Let's see, I don't see Delegate Cardoza.
He has not come in yet.
I'm sorry.
He has not come in yet.
Okay. Delegate Williams on House Bill 1131. Okay. Delegate Krizek on 1136.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 1136 aims to create a commission that will perform a review of all the Virginia Code and recommend changes to the General Assembly that are needed to reflect the recent federal recognition of our tribal nations that share territory within the Commonwealth. Code needs to be updated to reflect that federal recognition of the tribes, which has been occurring the last 3 to 5 years or so, now that we have 7 federally recognized tribes. We do have 2 tribal leaders who would like to testify remotely if there's time.
Are there any questions to the delegate on this bill?
Madam Chair,
Senator Eben.
has this federal recognition, this is new recognition of these tribes in the last year or so?
The the Pamunkey were recognized a number of years ago, and then the other 6 tribes were recognized, I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, this is an update then?
Madam Chair,
Delegate.
Senator, this is a cleanup of the code to. It's creating a commission that will go through the code to clean it up and bring back recommendations to us so that we can be in compliance with federal law and things like that.
Any other questions? Those here in support? Anyone in opposition?
If you're in the Zoom room and wish to speak in regards to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, we have 2 speakers.
Okay, if you could limit your comments to 2 minutes total.
Adrian Compton, please unmute and begin your testimony.
There we go. Hi. The Monacan Nation is in support of the bill, and we ask that you vote yes.
Thank you.
Stephen Adkins, please unmute and begin your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Adkins. I'm chief of the Chickahominy Indian tribe, and the question that was raised earlier, the Chickahominy and 6 tribes were recognized January 29th, 2018. The Pamunkey tribe was in 2016. But I'm just here to say I fully support this bill, and I hope it passes. If you have any questions of me that I can answer, I'd be willing to do so.
Thank you, Chief Atkins.
Madam Chair, that is our last speaker.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 1136 be reported. All those in favor, is this recorded? Okay. Please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
16, no, 0.
Aye 16, no 0. That bill is reported. Delegate Robinson.
Good morning. How is everyone? So my House Bill 1232 is an expansion to the Behavioral Health Commission. It would add 5 members to the Behavioral Health Commission. They're all citizen members. None of them will have voting privileges, but they're to be added in an advisory-only capacity. We've been kind of specific on who we think would be good contributors to the Behavioral Health Commission. 2 citizen members would have lived experiences. One would be a behavioral health specialist, one would be a peer recovery specialist, and one would be in law enforcement. They're all people who are probably the most familiar with really what happens in the behavioral health world, probably more so than any of the legislators, unless you work in that particular area, and that's what the bill does.
Are there any questions to the delegate on this bill? Anyone here in support? Please limit remarks to 2 minutes, please.
No problem. 2 minutes
Total.
For my comment or for everybody?
Total for everybody.
Okay. The inclusion of citizens with service experience will not succeed until Senator Deeds, Behavioral Health Commission members, and this body believe our seat at the table is good for Virginia. I hope we can continue to strive towards mutual understanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Bonnie Neighbor with the Disability Law Center of Virginia. We support this bill. We support getting people who receive services into the conversation. Thank you.
Anyone else in support in the Zoom room?
If you are in the Zoom and would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Hilscher. I have been advocating for improved mental health services since 2007 when my daughter was a victim in the Virginia Tech massacre. I have now served 6 years on the state board of DBHDS, but I am here representing myself and my family today, and I strongly ask you to support House Bill 1232. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone in opposition?
If you are in the Zoom room and wish to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Okay. Senator Deeds.
Just a second. For 8 years before we had the Behavioral Health Commission, we had the Joint Commission on Mental Health. And, that bill was created by, that commission was created by my legislation. The Behavioral Health Commission was created by my legislation. And what drove me to keep the membership of that commission, of that joint subcommittee and this commission legislative only, is the Virginia Tech Commission that Tim Kaine created, that made all sorts of great recommendations that gathered dust on the shelf because there was no legislative buy-in. I am interested in having a commission that makes people feel good, but I'm more interested in having a commission that gets things done. Mm-hmm. And I think that requires legislators, and this commission, the Behavioral Health Commission, just started last year, and we were slowed a little bit by COVID. We hired an executive director in February, and we're going to have our first meeting next month. I would ask you please not to pass this right now. I mean, I think give us a little bit of time. We might be able to expand the membership in this manner, but I just don't think this is an appropriate time to do it.
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to support the Senator from Bath's motion this morning. I am a member of that commission as well. I do want to note, though, I expect the commission will develop a robust study schedule. And usually, as other joint commissions have worked, we bring stakeholders to the table when we have those stakeholder groups in helping to investigate issues related to specific studies. So in that venue, we very much would be, I'm sure, we'd be reaching out to providers, to those who are consumers of mental health I would expect that the senator from Bath would agree with my comments. We are in no way saying your input is not valuable. We're asking for some time and perhaps shaping it in a different way in the immediate future.
And Madam Chair, just following up on that,
Senator
throughout
Deeds.
the years we had the Joint Commission, we had work groups. The work groups included providers and people who had lived experience, and I would anticipate that that would continue. So again, I'd move to carry the bill over.
Sir, it's been moved and seconded that House Bill 1232 be carried over. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 13, noes 3.
Ayes 13, noes 3. Delegate Robinson, that bill will be
I
carried over.
appreciate the carryover, so thank you.
Thank you. HJ 11, Delegate Marshall.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. This bill is by request from a small business owner in my district, and there is a substitute, I think. I'd like to, if we could get the substitute before us.
Motion on the substitute. It's been moved and seconded that the substitute be adopted. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Okay.
So, Madam Chair and members, if you look at lines 12, what this idea is about the practice of charging workers' comp premiums on bonus pay and vacation and holidays. And so what we ask in the Workers' Comp Commission to do is to do a study into this to see if other states have already done this, to take the pay that when they're figuring workers' comp on small businesses on those issues of pay, bonus pay, vacation, and holidays. Hopefully that it will lower the premiums for some small businesses. Simple bill.
Are there questions to the delegate? Anyone here to speak in support?
If you're in the Zoom room and wish to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Any opposition?
If you're in the Zoom room and wish to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that HJ 11 be reported. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? You're good. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, we have HJ 61, Delegate Hope. Okay, that is it for that section. We will now move to executive studies, HB 105, Delegate Rasool.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Before you, House Bill 105 seeks to study and look how we can possibly take the Catawba Hospital campus and reimagine how it can be serving not only behavioral health needs, but also substance abuse needs. This is in some ways a capstone to a 3-year project where dozens of organizations, including law enforcement, private providers, developed the Roanoke Valley blueprint for action, a 76-page outline of some of the resources that we need. This is a first step to kind of figure out what can we be doing in moving forward. It's had broad support all across the region in a bipartisan way. As we are trying to, as many regions are, tackle not only the behavioral health issues, but the substance abuse issues that we have. And happy to answer any questions that you have, Madam Chair.
Are there questions to the delegate on this bill?
Madam Chair,
Senator Deeds.
is the $1 million cost incorporated in the budget, House budget?
It is, Madam Chair, Senator Deeds, it is.
Okay. Other questions? Senator Howell.
Yeah, this seems like a rather prescriptive end result of what should be a study of all options to me. I would suggest that perhaps we carry this bill over and look at all the various options that it could be put to use for. most particularly, I mean, if it is an extensive review of options, I think it would make a lot of sense to include the $1 million. If it's just already decided kind of a situation, I don't see the need for it.
Madam Chair.
Delegate.
And also, Madam Chair, we certainly understand what we have in a unique position here in the Roanoke Valley is we've been able to really, in an unprecedented way, bring private providers, state entities, others together to say we are taking this to the next level. We've got countless documents that have shown that we have studied it, looked at it, and now trying to bring together both DGS, the Department of Behavioral Health Services, who the new commissioner is in support of this project, and say, what can we be doing to take this to the next level? Hopefully this project can be a beacon for other projects around the state.
Madam Chair.
Hold up, Senator Edwards.
Madam Chair, I just note. This is a Section 1 bill. It does provide a continuum of substance abuse, studying continuum of care and behavioral health care and other services, so it's fairly broad.
Senator Deeds.
I was just going to ask the chairman of Finance and Appropriations, isn't there language in the Senate budget that calls for an examination of the whole hospital system?
Yes.
And couldn't that language be modified to include looking at Catawba as particularly as a substance abuse, some language similar to what the delegate has in the resolution? Because I think this is a good idea. As we've looked at over the long haul, our focus has to be on providing services in the community. And there have been a couple of efforts in the last 25 years. I think Senator Hanger's been heavily involved in to reduce the number of beds in our hospital system. And this is a good idea. It's just a question of how we do whether we do it through the budget or through an independent study commission with $1 million.
And Madam Chair.
It's not an independent commission. I apologize.
Yeah. Madam Chair, Senator Deeds, I'd be happy to modify the language any way that we think helps to achieve our collective goal here, for sure.
Senator Favola.
Well, I'm inclined to make a motion that would actually incorporate the intent of House Bill 105 into the budget language that you already have crafted. This can be a part of it. Your budget language is broader, but I think the budget is the place to house this, and that would be my motion, Madam Chair.
I'm not sure.
I guess we'd have to pass this by and make a second motion, or carry it over. Okay, Madam Chair, I move that House Bill 105 be carried over.
Madam Chair, way down here, sorry.
Senator Newman on the outer ends.
The far right end. Madam Chair, I just want to make sure I understand the motion, because I think I'm right where Senator Deeds is. This really needs to be studied, and I think the chair of finance is saying we are going to study it in the budget. So is the motion to carry it over to get a better motion, or is the motion to carry the bill over for the year? I guess that's my question.
I'm not sure what we're doing.
Do you want me to respond, Madam Chair?
What do you want to do?
Madam Chair, I think the vote's
I defer to Senator Deeds, Madam Chair.
Let me find out. Senator Favola, is your motion to carry it over so that we can incorporate some language into the budget?
That is my motion.
Okay.
That's my intent, yes.
Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, then if the motion is to carry over HB 105 so that language can be crafted
And
for the budget.
Madam Chair, just a quick question. Would that be possibly done through a clause added to it instead, or no? Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
To craft language for the budget that will incorporate what you're trying to do.
if I could. Delegate Senator Donovan had a bill to basically turn the hospital system, the whole hospital system, into an authority, basically privatize the whole system. And we rejected that approach, basically, but we said we're going to take a look at the whole hospital system. So we have language in the budget that to examine what to do with the hospital system, because it's clear we've got crisis in different areas. And this is an idea, I think it's a good idea, that it's one that needs to be part of that. So
this will be incorporated into that. So a motion and a second, please. We need a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that HB 105 be carried over with the understanding that this will be incorporated into that broader study. Okay. All those in favor of that motion, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 14, noes 2.
Ayes 14, noes 2. That motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I will now go back to the earlier section of legislative studies to pick up HB 1057, Delegate Cardoza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 1057 establishes a commission for historically black colleges and universities that will answer to the General Assembly. It will have two members from each of the historically black colleges in our state, and they will be able to report directly to us to let us know exactly what they need, how we can help them, and how we can better help our HBCUs grow and succeed.
Are there questions to the delegate with regard to this particular commission that's being established? Delegate, my question to you is, why is this needed?
Well, our HBCUs have historically been underfunded, and if you have a direct ear to the General Assembly, it's a lot harder to be ignored. So that's one of the reasons we need it. Of course, we just need to grow our HBCUs. It's another reason, and we need to have that connection.
Madam Chair.
Senator Howell.
Perhaps it's because of the position I hold as chair of Finance and Appropriations, but I hear regularly from the presidents and alumni and boards of visitors from the historically black colleges and universities. I don't see what this would add, frankly. It might actually detract.
Well, if I can respond to that, Madam Chair, you may have a great dealing with some HBCU chairs, but I've seen members of the Assembly who didn't even know what an HBCU was. So while you may have a great relationship with them, the General Assembly as a whole does not necessarily have one, and many of the HBCUs have said that we need a stronger connection and a better voice in the General Assembly. As someone who graduated from who went to an HBCU, this is something I've heard, and I've heard from multiple presidents of HBCUs as a member that we need this.
I worked at one for 40 years. Be assured that these folks know what an HBCU is. And the underfunding has been historical, and individuals here knew that this underfunding was going on historically, and it was done deliberately. So, and individuals knew that this underfunding was going on. So I don't think that developing a commission to spend $20,600 a year is going to change that underfunding. The only thing that needs to happen is to increase the funding. And to develop a commission to say increase the funding isn't going to change anything. at least not from my perspective. Certainly, if you know that you've been underfunding institutions for years, and you've been doing it on purpose, I don't see how this helps.
Well, Madam Chair, I would just say that I was not here during that time. I cannot say the intentions of previous holders of the office. I can say that I have met members, and they did not know what an HBCU was when I talked to them, and I think that is a problem. Whether it is intentional or not, I know that several of the HBCU presidents have thought this is a good idea. This would be something. It's harder to be ignored, even if intentionally or unintentionally, when you have a voice speaking directly to the General Assembly. So I would say this is needed, that they can have that direct voice.
Senator Lucas.
Yes, Madam Chair. He must be talking or speaking specifically of members who are new here. Because for those of us who've been around here 20, 25, 30 years, who have been advocating for increased funding for HBCUs, we know that the members who have been here for more than a minute are very much aware of the underfunding, because we have made it our job and our mission to make sure that they do. And so, I feel a little bit insulted to be told that people don't know, when I know I've been around here 30 years. Everybody I know who's been here anywhere near that time understands very well what an HBCU is. And we've also made it our mission to make sure that they get introduced to those college and university presidents.
If I could respond to that, they weren't a member and a more senior member, I would say. So I wouldn't.
That's exactly my point. That's the point I was making. If there's somebody who's been around here more than 1 minute would know better.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, Madam President. This is probably somewhat surprising, but I attended an HBCU, took several courses there, and so am very, I hope, in tune to the aspirations of the HBCUs. And I have noted over the last few years, they are really gaining in support in the General Assembly. I agree with Senator Lucas. People do know who they are and the important role that they play in the Commonwealth. This, to me, is just totally unnecessary and possibly pernicious.
Okay. Is there anyone here in support of HB 1057?
If you're in the Zoom room and wish to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Anyone here in opposition?
If you are in the Zoom room and wish to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Thank you. Motion on 1057?
Move the bill be PBI.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 1057 be passed by indefinitely. All those in favor, please vote electronically.
Ayes 14, noes 2.
Ayes are 14, noes are 2. Bill is passed by indefinitely. Thank you, Delegate. Okay, House Bill 1131, Delegate Williams.
Good morning. Good morning. I'll be brief. This bill that I'm presenting to you is identical to Bill Stanley, Senator Stanley's bill that passed the Senate already 40-0. It is a work commission group that would get together and sort out public notices in our newspapers that are different across all code sections. So I have all the stakeholders, and they're interested in working together to streamline this process, and I'd ask that you pass this out of this body.
Thank you, Delegate Williams. HB 1131 is identical to Senate Bill 417, which passed the Senate unanimously.
I move to report. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 1131 be reported. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Thank you, guys.
16, noes 0.
Ayes 16, no 0. That bill's reported. And Delegate Hope.
Good morning, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I have House Joint Resolution 61. This is asking for a continuation of a joint committee that we worked on last year. I had the privilege of chairing this that takes a look at the Department of Corrections. Fortunately, in the budget, in both budgets, we do have significant funding for Department of Correction employees, and I'm grateful for that. But there is a significant issue that's going on within our Department of Corrections in terms of morale, training purposes. People are leaving. There's a 68% increase over normal years of attrition. And we need to figure out what's behind all of that in recruiting and retaining. So the purpose of continuing this work group, even beyond the salary increases, is to pressure test those salary increases. We did a survey and determined from about a 40% response rate that there are other issues going on related to training and working conditions. So pressure testing those salary increases, how that's doing for attrition and recruitment, but also looking to other cultural type issues to make sure that we can create an environment for the Department of Corrections where people want to work, live out their career, and stay for their entire career.
Are there any questions to the delegate about this continuing study? Any? Okay, I'm sorry, Senator Favola.
I don't have a question, Madam Chair. I have a motion.
All right. Those in support?
If you are in the Zoom room and wish to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Any opposition?
If you are in opposition to this bill and wish to speak electronically, please raise your hand now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
You need a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. 2 minutes, please.
Yes. Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Donald Baylor. I'm with the National Coalition of Public Safety Officers. And there's one thing that I'd like the committee to know. Delegate Hope mentioned to some aspects we have training that will be a factor in this. So in 2021, we lost 2,641 employees from the department to separations. I think this study would do a lot to finally find an answer to address that in retention and attracting people to this environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Need a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to report. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that House Joint Resolution 61 be reported. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? It's
Thank you,
reported.
Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Okay, going back to this section, Delegate Guzman, House Bill 1098.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I have...
There's a substitute?
I have amendments, a couple of amendments.
Amendments?
Yes.
Okay.
And what amendments do, Madam Chair, it will extend this study
to adopt the amendments.
Okay.
Move to adopt the amendments. Okay. All, there's a motion to adopt the amendments. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, we've adopted the amendments. What do the amendments do?
Okay, Madam Chair. This amendment will extend the study to 2023 and will insert the word estimated. And with that, I have spoken with the Joint Commission on Healthcare, and they will be able to absorb the cost of this study, Madam Chair, and will eliminate the fiscal impact.
Okay. Okay. And this is
it's a study about
for obesity prevention.
For obesity prevention. Okay. Obesity is not unique to one community. It's affecting children. It's affecting children from multiple races, educated, uneducated, low and high income. There is a whole line of supporters about this bill. You probably heard from the American Diabetic Association, and there's more here to testify,
okay.
Madam Chair.
I think it's already been heard. Okay. So, okay.
Yes.
So, are there any questions to Delegate Guzman on her study or on her bill?
Madam Chair. Peterson.
Senator Peterson.
I just want to thank her for drawing attention to this issue. I think one of my concerns for the last decade has been obesity in our children, lack of physical activity. I think that's been exacerbated over recently. So I think this is a good idea.
Thank you, Senator.
All right. Is there a motion on HB 1098? It's been moved and seconded that HB 1098 be reported. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed? We did. We did.
16, no, 0.
Ayes 16, no 0. That bill is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
We will now move to judicial studies. HJ 59, Delegate Wampler.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. House Joint Resolution 59 in front of you. This is a resolution asking the Office of Executive Secretary in the Supreme Court of Virginia to study the establishment of a uniform e-filing system across the inferior courts of Virginia. That would be the circuit courts, general district courts, and juvenile and domestic relations district courts. Several senators that are still in the Senate requested a study on this back in 2018. And it revealed that we have a patchwork system of e-filing across the state of Virginia. I believe that if we move towards this uniform system where every court is operating on the same system, we would develop tremendous efficiencies in the court system. And that is why I brought the bill. I did have a corresponding budget amendment, but it did not make it into the House budget. And so this is something that I need to work on with you all in the future. Bill's before you, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Are there any questions to Delegate Wampler?
Madam Chair.
Senator Edwards.
First of all, whatever you do, don't adopt the federal system. It's a mess. They started too soon. It's a complicated mess. You don't want to go there. Secondly, I think we're moving this way eventually, but there are two issues. One is people in the rural areas still need to file paper. Make sure the paper is available to be filed, because the federal system you can't file by paper. And the second thing is make sure people understand how to do this, especially older people like me, not so great with computers. And there's some localities, as you know, just can't do it. They don't have cannot afford to do it. So make sure you get to the point where they actually can afford to do it, and make sure you can still file paper. Okay.
Madam Chair.
I have a list here. Senator Peterson, Normant, Deeds, Eben.
Well, speaking on behalf, thank you, Madam Chair. Question/comment. Speaking on behalf of rural Fairfax County, we don't have online filing, which is actually great, because when I get some big DC firm, they're shocked, and then they have to get local counsel, which usually is me. So, I kind of like the current system, although maybe we can study this all we want. But anyways, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Senator Normant.
Unlike Senator Peterson, nobody hires me, but I get around to a fair number of jurisdictions, and I really do believe that some sense of uniformity would be appropriate, and I agree with Senator Edwards. I think we would need to move deliberately and educate it, but to continue to ignore this is just compounding the issue, and I would hope we would take a look at this.
Senator Deeds.
Just have a couple of questions. Number one, you said there was a budget amendment you asked for in the House that wasn't included. What was that budget amendment was supposed to do? Pay for the study, or?
Madam Chair, Senator Deeds, that's correct. It had about $600,000 as a budget amendment to begin the study, again, with a focus towards implementation, and it called for the Office of Executive Secretary to allow for a phased implementation of this. And to Senator Edwards' point, it did specifically state that we would not replace the traditional filing framework for courts. Former Chief Justice Don Lemons, he had this point made very clearly to me, is that is an access to justice issue. If folks weren't able to file traditional paper filings and were only limited to e-filing, there would be an access to justice issue. And so we put that in the budget amendment. But again, that was not included in the House budget.
So, Madam Chair, is that why this request the Office of Executive Secretary to make the study, and that doesn't direct them to make the study because you don't have a way to pay for it right now?
Madam Chair, Senator Deeds, yes, that'd be correct, and I would also offer that the circuit court clerks are independently elected constitutional officers, and so we've got to figure out that piece as well and make sure that they're willing and able and very much a part of this process when we do get to it.
Senator Eben.
Yeah, for the non-lawyer on the speaker list, this seems like a good idea, and I would note that in the summary it talks about taking into account internet availability in certain parts of the state And if it's a request, my only question is, all we're going to be getting is information from them which could inform future legislation or future study. Is that right?
Madam Chair, Senator, yes, that'd be correct.
Are there additional questions? Senator Deeds.
Well, it on line 28, it talks about requesting a study, but on line 47, it talks about shall complete its meetings by November 30, 2022. If this is basically a $600,000 request and we don't have the guts to fund it, how are we going to say somebody shall do anything? That's what I want to know.
Madam Chair and Senator, I think this is ripe for activity, but we may need to come back next year with a collaborative Senate and House version of this, and also work to make sure there's money in the budget for it. $600,000 is not going to get this done. This is going to be way more expensive than $600,000 to implement a uniform system. But again, I think it's worthy of focus, and as the technology continues to develop across the Commonwealth, across the country, this is going to work at some point in the future.
Madam Chair, I don't disagree, but I'd like to hear from the Office of the Executive Secretary if they've got the ability to undertake this work.
I'm not sure that they're here. They are, okay.
Good morning, Madam
Good morning.
Chair, members of the committee. Alyssa Padden with the Office of the Executive Secretary. We have not had any discussion with the delegate about taking on this study. As he mentioned, this is something that was studied in 2018 at the circuit court level. It was simply a study in cooperation with the Virginia Court Clerks Association. We had not put a fiscal impact on conducting the study, although there certainly would be a fiscal impact, as if this were to move forward to implement it in the system. But I'm not sure that answered the question, but I'm happy to be redirected.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so where are we on this?
Madam Chair.
Senator Favola.
I guess although the idea is certainly worthy and it seems to address a need, I believe it's on, although this bill does address a need, it doesn't seem to be quite as fleshed out as I would feel comfortable with. So I really think this bill needs to be carried over and for the year, and that would be my motion, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded that House Joint Resolution 59 be carried over. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Delegate Walker.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, we'll now move into what are deemed miscellaneous items. HB 137, Delegate McQuinn. Okay, House Bill 158, Delegate. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back to Delegate McQuinn's bill. Capital Region Airport Commission is identical to Senate Bill 478 from Senator McClellan's.
Move to report.
Okay, House Bill 137, the motion is to report. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 16, no 0.
Ayes 16, no 0. That bill is reported. HB 158, Delegate Byron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is very similar, and it is now the version, I guess, that we put on the Senate bill that came over from, which senator passed it? Senator
Suderline.
Peake. Suderline's bill. And I can go into it if you would like to explain the differences. Usually you can form the bills if that's your desire.
Which is what we were supposed to do last week. So,
Madam Chair, I move that we conform the bills to David Sutherland's bill, Senator Sutherland's bill.
it's been moved and seconded that House Bill 158 be conformed to Senate Bill 4. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, now those bills have been conformed.
Madam Chair, I move that we report as amended.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 158 be reported as conformed. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 13, noes 3.
Ayes 13, noes 3. That one is reported. Okay, House Bill 207, Delegate Wiebert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and committee, HB 207, right now, DPOR during a session has a short time to determine if a new occupational license is necessary or not. What the bill seeks to do is it seeks to extend that. It ensures the Department of Professional Occupational Regulations has sufficient time to study. Presently, it's a 30 to 60-day session, and while they're busy doing jobs, sharing feedback on legislation, what this does is it allows them 10 months to determine whether a new license is necessary or not, whether it's a barrier to entry or whether it really is in the public interest. And that's exactly what the bill does. And if it's a license that's absolutely necessary, we can always put an emergency clause on the bill if it's absolutely needed that year.
Are there any questions to the delegate on House Bill 207? Are there those here in support of the bill?
If you are in the Zoom room and wish to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no virtual speakers.
If you could be very brief,
yes,
please.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, Ben Knotts with Americans for Prosperity. In 2019, the General Assembly enacted a formal process for evaluating legislation that proposes new occupational licensing, and this bill was recommended from a JLARC study that said this would ensure that we don't create unnecessary licenses. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there those in opposition?
If you are in the Zoom room and wish to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
I move to report, Madam Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 207 be reported. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
16, noes 0.
Ayes 16, noes 0. That bill is reported.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The last bill in this section is actually my bill, and there's a substitute on Senate Bill 776. It's been moved and seconded that the substitute be adopted. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And this bill deals with the sale or auction of surplus property for the General Assembly replacement project. And Amigo will explain what the substitute does.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The substitute will direct that the proceeds that go into the special non-reverting fund be administered by the Capitol Square Preservation Council, and then the council will transfer it to the Capitol Foundation after they work out after they enter into an agreement for the purposes of the bill. The issue was that there's a constitutional provision that prevents the General Assembly from appropriating money to a charitable organization. So this would take care of that.
And if you recall, this bill provides for the sale of the surplus property from the Pocahontas building as part of the General Assembly's replacement project.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Correct. Okay. Second, it's been moved and seconded that SB 776 be reported. All in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Uh, 16, no 0.
Aye 16, no 0. That bill is reported. We now move to commending resolutions, SR 23 from Senator Morrissey. Is he still here? Oh, yeah.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. SR 23 is
resolution to commend the Richmond Public Arts Commission. This commission led by a dedicated group, including Melvin Jones and others, has enabled the construction and completion of the Maggie L. Walker statue in Plaza here in Richmond. And
There is a substitute.
yes,
There is a substitute on this.
There is a substitute.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded that the substitute be adopted. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, substitute is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The substitute, as I just mentioned, commends the Public Arts Commission that honors Maggie L. Walker. I don't know if Melvin Jones and some of the members are here today, but they have been working for over a decade on this. It has come to fruition, and of course, is to honor the memory and legacy of Maggie L. Walker. And you know what? I always find the backstories interesting, certainly sometimes more interesting than what everybody knows. And thought you might be interested in members might be interested in this. Of course, everybody knows that Maggie Walker touched the lives of numerous folks through her entrepreneurial endeavors, her education endeavors. She was a trailblazer in banking. And everybody knows that she started the St. Luke's Penny Savings Bank. What I don't think a number of people are aware is this. In 1915, her husband was killed by her son. Son mistook the dad for a burglar, and he passed, and she was by herself. And over the next 9 years, she grew that bank almost single-handedly, and in the roaring 20s, it reached 50,000 members, where many banks perished during the Great Depression. The St. Luke Penny Savings Bank survived. I just found that and her entire career to be enormously not only
Madam Chair?
rewarding.
Senator Eben.
I just wanted to thank the senator for bringing the resolution. It's a beautiful plaza, and if the Richmond Arts Council did it, we should commend them, and I would move that we report.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded that Senate Resolution 23 be reported. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Senator.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members.
And the final resolution is Senate Resolution 26, commending Paymerang from Senator Hashmi. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that completes that part of our docket. We will now move to legislation that was re-referred to Senate rules from Education and Health, beginning with House Bill 8 from Delegate Anderson.
Good morning, members of the committee. Schools have two ways to protect their campuses. They use SROs, which are police officers, and they use SSOs, which are school security officers. Current law in Virginia allows a certain pool of applicants to be SSOs, and those are former police officers or retired police officers. This bill seeks to include a new pool of applicants that could apply for SSO positions to include veterans who have been honorably discharged and who have served 10 years. Those SSOs, regardless if they're former police officers or possible new veterans, would have to go through the exact same training that's required under the law. All this bill does is add a new applicant pool for schools to do this. The second thing it does is it allows the schools to multitask the SSOs to do other jobs as necessary in the school, excluding discipline. So the intent of that was be coaching and maybe driving the school bus if necessary. The real problem that we see in Virginia Beach is there's a police shortage, and they had to pull all of our SROs out of school last year because of our shortages. And this will give schools more flexibility to secure their schools if they choose to with SSOs, and I would hope that it would be the will of the body to move this legislation along.
Are there questions to Delegate Anderson? Anyone here in support of the bill?
If you're in the Zoom room and wish to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Opposition?
Madam Chair, Shane Riddle with the Virginia Education Association. We believe in
2 minutes, please.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Madam Chair, we believe in the overall premise of the bill, but there are a couple of things, especially on page 2, lines 112 through 119. the purpose of the SRO is enumerated in the code, and then you go down to the language that was added, and one of the purposes of maintaining order and discipline. So that's some of what the SRO does, and then further down, they exclude enforcement of discipline reserved solely and exclusively for school administrators. This was added. And then they also added carrying out any other duty assigned to him or her. And we just disagree with this language. The reason is the primary purpose of the SRO is to do these enumerated things in the code. And if they have any other duties as assigned, this could take away from their primary purpose as a school resource officer. And so, for these reasons, we ask that you oppose this bill. Thank you.
If you are in the Zoom room and wish to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Delegate.
Madam Chair, I would like to give a minor bit of background. As this bill advanced through the House, I worked closely with many of the Democrat delegates on this, and they had concerns with this language as well. On the request of one of those, we added line 119 to exclude discipline. But if it were a matter of this bill failing or passing, and it was simply deleting this language about the additional purposes, I would be amenable to doing that, because the real intent here is to include more people to be able to do this very important role that's enumerated by code. So if it means failing as it is or amending, taking that language out, I would be amenable to, I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Question, Madam Chair.
Senator Favola.
My understanding is that localities now can enter into memorandums of understanding. In other words, the school systems can enter into MOUs with the Board of Supervisors or the police departments to sort of shape the role of the SRO. And I'm concerned that this may actually be prescriptive in some way that a jurisdiction may not want it to be prescriptive. Could you respond?
Madam Chair and Senator, so as the gentleman who just objected, he used the term SRO, and this is not an SRO bill. This is an SSO. SROs are police officers. This is a school security officer bill. This has no effect of police in any way. This is an alternative to schools that would maybe want to have school security officers, not law enforcement officers, in their schools. So this should have no impact over any MOUs involving police involvement in the schools.
Thank you. Further questions? Senator Marston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Anderson, what is the need? You know, my history working with the juvenile court for a number of years, and school security officers are important, and keeping people on campus, keeping others off campus. Why arming? What is the point of these folks being armed? The SROs, I get it, they're police officers, but why?
Well, Senator Marston, this bill doesn't attempt to change existing code. The code already allows SSOs to be armed. The SSOs are currently only former police officers or retired police officers. So that question isn't part of this bill. This simply just seeks to add an additional pool of people that could become SSOs.
Madam Chair.
Senator Marston.
Yeah, I guess what concerns me here is that why former military folks, successful school security officers, in my experience, have been people who were primarily interested in the welfare of kids and have had experience working with kids, and I don't get the necessarily the military equation here as to some guy could have been in the Air Force working on working as a mechanic on airplanes and not involved with firearms, but even so, I just don't get the I would assume they could apply like anyone else to become a school security officer. Is there something unique that needs to be added to allow them to become a school security officer through the normal process of applying for a job?
Madam Chair, Senator Marson, so currently, the Code of Virginia restricts who can become school security officers. That's the current law. And all I'm trying to do is include an additional pool of people. I don't necessarily disagree that it should be anybody. But what we were looking for was to include a group of more people that could apply to do this job if the schools wanted to. A school can choose an SSO to be armed or unarmed. And so there are schools that have unarmed school security officers, and there are schools that have armed security officers, and that's provided in the code. All that this does is include a big group of other people, especially in Hampton Roads and in Northern Virginia, that would be able to apply for this job that currently can't apply for this job. The only people that can apply for this job now are police, former police, or retired police. I don't disagree that it should be maybe open, but I felt like making a small correction could relieve some of the pressure currently schools are facing right now.
Senator Peterson.
If I might ask a question. Delegate Anderson, unfortunately for you, Senator Boyce's anti-hazing bill doesn't take effect till July 1, so I'm going to ask a question.
Please do. I'm used to it.
Nobody got my joke. All right. You say on line 118, it says an SSO can carry out any other duty assigned to him by the local school board. Full stop. Do you see that?
I do.
And there's no limitation on that. So in other words, the school board could say, we want you to be in charge of school security, and we also want you to teach calculus, or we want you to coach the softball team. It's any other duty, correct?
Excluding, Madam Chair, Senator Peterson, excluding enforcement of discipline, that would be correct. Other states do this, and the Rhode Island, for instance, and most of the time they're coaches and other non-teaching roles. They serve in other roles, but it would allow the school boards to have more flexibility in how they task their staff.
Okay, further question, Madam Chair. So in other words, the school board could determine that the football coach gets to be on site and, may or may not have military service. A lot of people have military service and carry a firearm or what have you. No law enforcement training whatsoever.
Madam Chair and Senator Peterson, so they would not have law enforcement training, but they do have to go through the training that's required existing in the code, and you would find that, and this is already existing law, but you would find that starting at 256 on the last page. They would still have to go through active shooter training, emergency evacuation training, threat assessments, and so would former police officers and current police officers. They would have to go through that same DCJS training.
But to come back to my first question, your language says carry out any other duty assigned to him by the local school board, excluding enforcement of discipline. So it could be anything. They could put him in the lunchroom.
That's right. They could be the janitor. It would give the schools that purpose, and that is the language I'm willing for you to remove if it meant the bill moving forward. I was trying to give school boards more flexibility in how they task this because of shortages that all schools are having right now.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We have House Bill 8 before us.
Substitute motion. And I commend the delegate, and I'm giving him a little bit of a hard time, but I do think the language is way too open-ended, and I think that we have flexibility right now. So I would move that we PBI the bill.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 8 be passed by indefinitely. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Thank you.
Ayes 13, noes 3.
Ayes 13, noes 3. Okay. We now move to House Bill 89. Delegate Walker.
Good morning, members of the committee, Madam Chair. HB 89 came to me at the plea of Bedford County's sheriff officers, as well as the Virginia Associations of Sheriff's Association. This bill seeks to amend the code section relating to disorderly conduct in schools, specifically high school. Sometimes we pass bills and we find out that there have been unintended consequences. While we appreciate and understand the intent of the original legislation, we have completely taken a tool off the table for our law enforcement officers to restore order. These are situations that arise in classrooms and football games where law enforcement officers need to restore order, and we have tied their hands completely. Countless law enforcement officers and school administrators have approached us asking for a change so that they can better serve our community schools. We're simply giving a tool back to law enforcement and school administrators who specifically requested this legislation. We need to give our law enforcement officers and our school administrators the ability, discretionary ability to do what they need to do. Madam Chair, this bill causes no harm at all to any students, especially those with autistic or disability issues. We're not trying to make criminals out of children. Our SO officers do a great job in taking care and ensuring that all of our students are treated fairly and impartially. We need to trust our school administrators, law enforcement officers to make the right decisions. When they're specifically asking for help, we need to help them. And part of the reason I bring this bill to you is most recently in my area, City of Lynchburg, we had a lockdown last week in one of our schools. 2 weeks ago in Halifax County, South Boston, the principal was concerned about a kid, and so the law enforcement officers brought in with their dog sniffing and discovered there was some issues in a backpack. The student refused the principal to allow the backpack to be searched. They contacted the parents of this individual, said absolutely check his backpack. Well, it was determined when the officers went back, they picked up the wrong backpack. The backpack next to him had 2 9mm Glocks loaded. The bag that they originally were to pick up had drugs in it. So these situations are out here in our public schools, and sometimes we never know and hear about it until something tragically happens. So all we're asking is that your consideration of this bill right here to allow the school administrators, principals, and the law enforcement to work together to prevent, any harm to our students, which is, I think, the most important thing we can do to help in our schools. That is simply the bill, Madam Chair.
Are there those here in support of the bill?
If you're in the Zoom room and wish to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Those in opposition, 2 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members. Amy Woolard with Legal Aid Justice Center. We do oppose the bill. This is a bill that exactly criminalizes kids. Even in its amended version, it repeals a bill you all passed in 2020 unanimously after 2 robust hearings in judiciary that year. Disorderly conduct when applied to kids criminalizes simple, disruptive, and often normal behavior. It might be behavior that needs to be disciplined, but schools have those tools in their system. It's not assault, it's not threat, it's not guns, drugs, trespass, destruction of property. According to the statute itself, it can simply be recklessly creating a risk of annoyance with disruption. And disruption is whatever the adult in the room says it is. In the past, what it has looked like, students with disabilities like autism being criminalized for kicking a trash can, students in mental health crisis criminalized rather than treated, and it has looked like behavior that is simply not a crime being shuttled into our court system. The schools aren't asking for this. The Commonwealth's attorneys aren't supporting this. They have the tools they need. This is not the direction we should be headed.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Stacey Haney on behalf of the Virginia School Boards Association. We are strongly opposed to this legislation. We supported the legislation in 2020 to roll this back, and we don't think that we should go back on that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, John Smean with the Disability Law Center of Virginia. As we all know, students with disabilities and students of color are disproportionately affected by the over-criminalization of student conduct, and we'd ask you to defeat the bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, Shane Riddle with the Virginia Education Association. We are opposed to this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're in the Zoom room and wish to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, we have one speaker, Teresa Champion.
Bring her in.
Ms. Champion, please unmute and begin your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Teresa Champion with the Virginia Autism Project, and we absolutely oppose this bill. The examples given of guns in schools violate other issues, not disorderly conduct. And as we know, Virginia does criminalize students under the past legislation that they had. So we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a motion.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Pass the bill by indefinitely.
second.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 89 be passed by indefinitely. Those in support, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 13, noes 3.
Ayes 13, noes 3. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Byron, House Bill 156.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 156 is, it's almost identical with an amendment we made for Northern Virginia to clarify that this does not affect schools with Department of Health employees that are paid through the Department of Health in the Northern Virginia schools. This bill is a bipartisan bill. This bill had no opposition in committee, no opposition on the floor on the House side, no opposition came forward in the Senate side. We addressed clarifying things to make sure that people understood in the past that this did not affect family life education. We do not affect nurses or anybody in the
Madam
school
Chair.
systems.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Are we talking about a different bill?
Senator McPike.
I'm sorry, this bill came out of the House 5247. Are we talking about a different bill?
Nobody spoke against it on the House floor or in the
Okay,
committee.
I just heard that there was no opposition.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And bipartisan
I wasn't
support.
talking
I was just
votes. I'm sorry.
confused on which bill we were talking about. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I meant no one came forward to oppose it or discuss it or debate it.
I'm sorry, Delegate Byron, there's a substitute? Is there a
Yes, the
substitute?
substitute, I'm sorry, there is a substitute. To conform it, it conformed it to Senator Peake's bill.
Okay, we need to adopt a substitute. Has anybody seen a substitute?
The committee and health did, you didn't.
So did we substitute?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, we in subcommittee came up with is this a substitute that we talked about in Education and Health Subcommittee? Is that where this comes from?
This came from Senator Lewis's subcommittee, and it adopted Senator Peake's bill that passed out on a bipartisan manner a couple of years ago, and the only amendment we made to it was to clarify Northern Virginia people that work in the school system that are paid by the Department of Health, that it doesn't affect them.
Madam Chair.
Senator Lewis.
My recollection was, I think Delegate Byron's correct, my recollection was it was the exact language of the Peake bill, but I think we had a line amendment in the subcommittee that clarified, so I'm assuming that's what we have in front of us. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Madam Chair, the bill is very simple. We know that a couple years ago that there was postcards sent out that a lot of parents were upset about. They felt it undermined them because it went out to minors. They weren't aware they were coming out. And this isn't just that. I would like to think that the same reason that it came out unanimously out of subcommittee is that a lot of people weren't aware or still are not aware of some of the kind of information that the Department of Health was promoting and encouraging. There are, even though they stopped the postcards because they said it wasn't cost effective, they subcontract sometimes with third-party people, and I don't think we're aware of that or the vetting that's done like is done through the public school system when we do family life education. But with the Department of Health, they had 3 websites and text messaging that was on their website, which has, I have to say, has been cleaned up in the last 2 weeks. But they are still out there with Scarlettine and Rue and another one that gave text messaging numbers and 800 numbers that minors could call, and I shared privately in the Department of, or in the subcommittee with the others, but since we don't have that opportunity here, Scarlettine goes into a lot of things that parents, I think, would want to discuss with children themselves. Some of the excerpts that I took from there, they talk about, I'm tired of adults doing to teens what your mom's doing to you. Go forth and masturbate without fear. Talks about, encourages buying a book called Pussypedia. I hate to say this in the committee, but those are the kind of things that I shared privately in the subcommittee with them. There's a lot worse than what I just told you. There's a virtual tour of the most private parts of a woman's body. Rue talks about things that you do with a robot, and it answers your questions, and it asks you if you want to know more. And some of their featured things are, can certain foods make your semen taste better? These are things that are being put out there by an agency that is of the state that parents want to be able to have discussed with their own children. It's wrong, and I would like to think that you think it's wrong too. This has nothing to do with the things that we authorize in our schools and other things that we approve of. But that's the reason for my bill. I hope that your intent isn't to kill it and that you realize some of the things that I'm sure you weren't aware of were out there. We have copies of them. I'd be glad to share them with you.
Are there those here in support of House Bill 156? 2 minutes, please.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'll be brief. I think we've heard a lot about what is being posted on the website. You know, under Virginia law, parents have the fundamental right.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Todd Gackey, on behalf of the Family Foundation. Sorry about that. Under Virginia law, we have the fundamental right to direct the health and education of our children, and that's just to make sure that as parents, we have the ability to make sure we know we're invested in their lives, we know what's going on, and things like this can undermine our ability to be able to parent our children. We're just looking for the same courtesy that FLE provides, which is the opportunity to have consent and knowledge of what's being shared with our kids. And so we just hope it'll be the pleasure of the committee to support this bill.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jeff Caruso with the Virginia Catholic Conference. We too support the bill. Parents are the primary educators of their children. This bill supports them in their role, and we urge you to vote in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Susan Musket with Pro Family Women, and we support the legislation.
Thank you.
If you are in the Zoom room and wish to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Madam Chair, there are no speakers.
Thank you. Are there those in opposition?
If you are in the Zoom room and wish to speak in opposition, please raise your hand electronically now.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman. Becky Bowers Lanier with the Virginia Association of School Nurses. The premise of the bill we're not concerned with about communication from the Department of Health. The problem that we've run into is that in Northern Virginia, Fairfax County in particular, school nurses are employed by the Department of Health. And so inadvertently, they have gotten caught up in communication. And there is the exception clause in this bill. What it says is in the performance of related to medical conditions, which is very broad and doesn't necessarily cover school health services that include prevention and treatment. And well, I saw that. I'm looking at the one that's fixed, and I'm still thinking that it's not totally clear. One other thing that was added, which helped to clarify, was that it wasn't just school nurses employed by the Department of Health, but also individuals who are employed by the Department of Health who also provide school health services. The problem, it relates around medical conditions, and I think if we could add or kind of amend that area to indicate including school health services, that might help. But that's unfortunate that it's gotten caught up in the premise of the bill, which is to stop the communication from the Department of Health, not the school nurses.
Thank you.
Hi, Madam Chairman. I'm Claudia Arco with Fairfax County, and I apologize to Delegate Byron because when this was unveiled in subcommittee earlier this week, we only saw the substitute right then. So I'm going to raise an issue that we didn't raise at the time because we were just looking at it sort of on the fly. But what the previous speaker said, is correct. And I think our concern is that this really has exclusions in here that really get in between those communications on prevention issues between our health department staff and students that really go beyond the issue that I think she's trying to solve. which really doesn't have anything to do with schools and communication between the health department and schools, and so that's our concern. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Opposition in Zoom.
Jamie Lockhart, please unmute to begin your testimony.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Jamie Lockhart. I serve as Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Advocates of Virginia, and we are very much opposed to this bill. The substitute makes family life education programs offered by the Department of Health employees and contractors opt in by requiring parents and guardians to give consent for their child to participate in these programs, and we know that that would hinder participation in the programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate.
Madam Chair, if I could just point out, RU is operated by Planned Parenthood, so it doesn't surprise me that they would oppose it. One of the things I read to you was from RU and their website. And I'm not saying Planned Parenthood doesn't have their purpose, but I don't think that some of these things that are being promoted are being looked at by the rest of us or people that approve the kind of content that is being shared. Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Okay. Senator Pavola.
I have a motion, and I do understand the intent, I think, that the delegate is putting forth, but I just believe there are going to be some unintended consequences when it comes to children's health. We really do have to look at being as inclusive as possible and promoting public health information in many venues. So I have very serious concerns, and my motion is that we PBI the bill.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 156 be passed by indefinitely. All those in favor? I'm sorry.
Chair, down.
Senator Newman.
Just to be clear, I think most of you remember when we were in the science building and there was a brochure and I gave you copies of it, and I just hope no one in here is okay with what the department did. It was sleazy and awful. And Kathy, I know that maybe the bill could use an amendment talking about school personnel, no matter where they come from, but ultimately the purpose of the bill, and I think the message of the bill should be really, really strong, that stuff that they sent even to my house, and I'm pretty old, I'm not a young person, but they directed it to young people. And some of those people out there that have opposed the bill in general, I really worry about that because they're actually supporting that kind of unbelievable activity. The technical concerns about Fairfax and who employs their health department people, I kind of get that, but I hope the message is not lost on anyone that the Department of Health did something that should have never been done to very minor children. And they actually, in part of it, told them not to tell your parents, which to me is the worst of where government can possibly go. So anyway, that's just my comment, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Newman. The motion is to pass by indefinitely. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 12, noes 4.
Ayes 12, noes 4. Bill is passed by indefinitely. Thank you, Delegate Byron. House Bill 304, Delegate Freitas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. What House Bill 304 does is essentially establish a legal requirement for a medical professional to be able to provide care to a child that is born despite the fact that an abortion was attempted. So essentially what it does is once an abortion is attempted, the child is born alive. At that point, the medical professionals have a legal obligation in order to provide all reasonable care that they can provide or attempt to get the child to a hospital in order to receive additional care. Nothing in the bill would convey any sort of criminal action against the mother. This is very narrowly tailored toward medical professionals that would be on site at the time when the abortion is taking place. And the reason why I think this is important is because we have acknowledgement from the CDC and other individuals and organizations that we do have instances of this taking place. We do have abortion survivors. And the idea is what is the obligation on behalf of a medical professional once that takes place? And I hope it would be the Commonwealth's policy that regardless of what our position is on abortion all the way up into that point, once the child is born, we do have a legal obligation in order to provide basic, reasonable health care in an attempt to save that child. That is essentially what the bill does. I'm happy to take questions, and I do have someone that would like to speak on behalf of the bill, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there those here in support of House Bill 304?
If you're on the Zoom room and would like to speak in support of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
I will take those in the room first. Please note that you are limited to 2 minutes total.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Susan Musket, President of Pro Family Women, and we strongly support the Infant Born Alive bill. Legislation protective of babies born alive has strong support among the American people and among women. A February 2019 poll found that 77% of Americans and 75% of women support legislation that would ensure that a baby who survives a failed abortion would be given the same treatment as any other baby born alive at the same age. Another poll in June 2019 found that 74% of suburban women support requiring doctors to provide medical care to infants who survive an abortion. Now, why is this support so strong? Why do so many women support this type of legislation? I think it's because most Americans draw a bright line at the point of birth when the baby is born. And so we support the legislation. Thank you.
Virginia Society for Human Life, I'm Olivia Turner, President of VSHL. We absolutely support this bill because every human being deserves medical care that is appropriate with their circumstances.
Good morning, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Julia Sabanowitz, and I represent the Virginia Catholic Conference, and we support this bill as well. I hope we'll give some time to the virtual speaker today, who is here on behalf of this bill as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Eleni Hadges. I'm just a constituent of Senator McClellan, and I support this bill. And I urge all of you to consider the life of these most vulnerable, innocent human beings who have now been born, and to consider them with all the protection that the law would extend to any other human. I can't think of a more fundamental human rights issue, and so that's why I came here on short notice to urge you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin Sertel, please unmute to begin your testimony.
Thank you very much, Madam, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Robin Sertel.
Ms. Sertel, the time has expired for those who are in support, so if you could take 30 seconds, please.
Thank you, Madam. I am a survivor of 3 failed saline infusion attempts, and I am the education coordinator of the Abortion Survivors Network, and we support this bill, and we urge every member to also support this bill. Every child should be protected, regardless of whether an abortion was performed upon them or not. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Are there those here in opposition?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Tara Gibson. I'm here on behalf of the Virginia Reproductive Equity Alliance. That includes 12 reproductive health and justice groups from across the Commonwealth. We strongly oppose this bill.
Thank you.
If you are in the Zoom room and wish to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Jamie Lockhart, please unmute and begin your testimony. Ms. Lockhart, please unmute.
Hi, Madam Chair and members of the committee. These bills like this are just another vehicle for anti-abortion politicians to push misinformation and stigmatize abortion and those who provide it. These bills are a solution in search of a problem and are full of inflammatory language designed to politicize the provision of healthcare. They are completely unnecessary. Doctors are already obligated to provide appropriate medical care. To suggest otherwise is false, offensive, and dangerous. I ask you to oppose this bill and pass it by indefinitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have House Bill 304 before us.
Madam Chair.
Senator, who's that? Okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Would it be
I'm hearing voices in my head. Yes, Ellie.
Would be all right to respond just briefly?
Sure.
Thank you.
Briefly, please.
I will. Again, when we talk, I understand that there is a significant difference of opinion with respect to abortion. This is clearly covering something that once the abortion has already taken place, the child is born. All of the typical arguments that we generally go back and forth on questions of bodily autonomy or when human life begins, none of that enters into this particular conversation. And the idea that this is a solution in search of a problem, when I have sat there and I know people that have gone through this process and have been left on the table to die, the idea that that's not a problem that we would want to address, and especially when we're trying to do it as narrowly as possible in order to be respectful of the differences that we have on what is otherwise a very controversial issue. So I take great exception to the idea that there isn't some category where we can come together and agree that at this point, this is about simply providing a basic level of medical care for a child that is already born and born alive. And I hope it would be the will of the committee to report the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. You need to be louder than that, Dick. Speak up.
I move that it be passed by indefinitely.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that the House Bill 304 be passed by indefinitely. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 12, noes 3.
Ayes 12, noes 3. The bill is passed by indefinitely. Thank you, Delegate.
Madam Chair, members.
Okay, we have one last bill on the docket. That's House Bill 1333. Delegate Cardoza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill simply makes it so that if you are stationed here in Virginia and you have 4 years of service or 4 years of filings in Virginia, that your children are eligible for in-state tuitions. That's very simple. I think it's a good bill. It's helpful to our veteran families in Virginia, and I would hope that you would pass the bill.
And Madam Chair,
Senator Dietz.
the change that this bill makes is down on line 43 right now. If you have 10 years of filings, but you've not chosen to become a resident of Virginia, if you have 10 years of income tax filings, you get in-state tuition, and you're just reducing that from 10 to 4.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair,
Senator Dietz.
the fiscal impact on this bill is indeterminate. Do you know if any measure was taken in the House budget to make up the lost tuition for the colleges and universities?
I don't believe so. I don't believe there is I believe that it was determined not to have a fiscal impact because it's, as far as I'm aware, I don't believe there was.
But there could be a loss of revenue.
I wouldn't say that it would be a loss. I can't say for sure. I wasn't called before appropriations, so I would say that I don't believe our House Appropriations believes there is a fiscal impact.
Madam Chair?
Senator Edwards.
Yeah. We have like 714,000 people who are veterans in Virginia, plus I don't know how many hundreds of thousands on active duty. It's one of the largest states in the country when it comes to the military, which brings in a lot of revenue to the Commonwealth. And I think this is one of the few things we can do to help our veterans, the children of veterans, to get an education in Virginia, in-state tuition. It reduces from 10 years to 4 years of active duty of tax filings, which I think is adequate. And we ought to go ahead and do this.
Remember?
Thank you.
We were all going to vote no. No, we're going to.
Madam Chairman, I move to report.
Substitute motion, Madam Chair.
Senator Favola.
I would move to PBI because of the fiscal impact, the fact that it's indeterminate. There may be other ways we can help children of veterans, but my motion is to PBI.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 1333 be passed by indefinitely. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 12, noes 3.
Ayes 12, noes 3. That bill is passed by indefinitely.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I believe that clears everything from the docket. Thank you. Good job, Pam. Good job, good job. Okay, we are done for the year.